in America, in this country, you would think by now we would call ourselves human beings. Just what's wrong with being a human being? But then again, if you ascribe that terminology to your fellow neighbor, right, then you're less likely to want to harm that person.
Well, we all live black and white. Trying to fight for equal rights. Keep your eyes on the prize. Hold on, hold on, hold on. Keep your eyes on the prize.
America was built and maintained on the backs of the enslaved, and this fact should be an integral part of the American story. Somehow this fact is minimized when the grand narrative is taught in history lessons within the classroom. This documentary is about shedding light on the presence of melanated people throughout American history. The good, the bad, and the evil.
What's good? What's good?
This man, stripped naked, is being told to stay silent as he is burnt with what's said to be molten plastic.
We have a lot of growth to do, a lot of growing to do, I should say, And I think collectively we have to do that. People who classify themselves as white, people who classify themselves as black.
It is not unusual that Africanity in America has always been riddled with derision. Yet even still, the greatness of its presence within the United States cannot be completely erased or forgotten. Although it may seem like Africanness is always under attack, the American story has been filled with social movements such as Brown v. the Board of Education, the Civil Rights Movement, and the abolishment of Jim Crow segregation laws, all of which helped pave the way for many other movements of the marginalized to free themselves. Yet, in the history books, as it's taught in the U.S. curriculum, the presence of blackness is always portrayed to be a small supporting factor to the achievements of its white counterpart. While it is true that young students have a chance to study small portions of the African diaspora, it is seldom that they learn about African classical influence and the diversity of the Songhai Empire and its influence on the classical European culture and world history.
We're absent knowing what we were like prior to the coming of the colonialist, the enslaver, right? And as a result of that, and I'm speaking generally now, we don't have an appreciation for the greatness of our ancestors upon whose shoulders we stand today.
U.S. students will most likely be introduced and immersed in the details of the rise and fall of the Roman Empire and taught about Napoleon Bonaparte and the French Empire. However, the same student will only be introduced to enslaved Africans and excerpts from freed slaves such as Frederick Douglass and Harriet Jacobs. Majority of students in the U.S. curriculum would never acknowledge the amazing works of Aluda Equiano's captivity narrative, Molefe Kete Asante's work on Afrocentricity, or even expand upon connections between Harlem Renaissance writers like Zora Neale and Langston Hughes, amongst many others that are tremendous key turners, not only in the African diasporic history, but in American history itself. This kind of curriculum is very problematic to the student because it gives the impression that there is no other historical reality other than slavery. It's extremely challenging for young people to imagine that they can do great things when they are encumbered by the metaphorical shackles placed on their minds with Eurocentric education. This documentary is my small contribution to the advocacy of human unity through historical honesty.
That even today, when we see somebody, who's dressed different, who has braids or dreadlocks, or they're letting the hair go natural, folks go, oh, that's the woke. What's that mean? So, other than, we live in a society that is asleep in large measure, who haven't matured socially, politically, economically, spiritually. And if we haven't evolved that way, we're a danger to ourselves as well as to each other, So that's how I'm looking at this.
Well, we all live black and white.